I'll give you a second to hop on. Hopefully, you're having an awesome day. The weather here in Utah in the north part of the state's been a little up and down, but definitely had some sunshine today, which is always good because I work in a windowless office. So it's like a complete surprise when I come out to see what the weather's doing. So, we're going to talk about wasted energy today. If you're just new to joining me with this, my name is Amy and I own the Soul Centered Academy. My purpose and passion is helping other people to overcome their trials, their traumas, whatever they have going on. Like my main thing is honestly, I just want to help you get your smile back because I know what it's like to live. I'm just going to call it literally in the depths of hell. When you've gone through something and you're just, you're in that state where you're like, nothing, I can't do it. Like nothing is ever going to change. I'm never going to get myself out of this space. And, it's a lonely place to be in. So, I love it if you tell me where you're from. So even if you're watching the replay and you want to put in the comments in the chat, where you're watching from. I always just love to see where you guys are at. Depending on which one of my pages you're coming in off of, sometimes I can see your names and sometimes it just tells me that you're a guest. So if I don't say hello to you specifically by your name, if you say hi, don't be offended. It just means that I can't tell what it is until after I get done and I see it where it's posted. So we're going to talk about wasting energy. I mean, I want to say that this is a really good subject, but I really try for all my subjects to be really good and beneficial, as I know that, you're spending time watching. So let's just dive right into it. This one came up today because even for myself, I was like, man, people are always like, I'm so tired. I'm so tired no matter what I do. I'm so tired. And we want to think about it as, oh, something must be wrong with me. My thyroid's messed up. Something's going on. But sometimes really, hello, Dave from Smithfield, Utah. Sometimes our energy is just being expended on things. And so it's almost like, you can think of it as you wake up in the morning and you have so much energy available in your tank, in your cup, or whatever. And, if you're wasting it on things that are not beneficial or not getting you anywhere, then you start feeling tired and you start feeling exhausted because you only have so much. And then we do this consecutively every single day. And then we get into this space where we're like, man, I'm just so exhausted. And then it actually starts doing the opposite of what you think it would do, especially depending on what human design type you are. You basically, depending on what your type is, you're either going to be a person who needs to go to bed when you're exhausted in order for you to sleep the best, or you're the type of person that actually should start winding down 30 minutes before you go to bed. And this is the kind of a complicated thing that I get into with human design. But depending on what design you are, one of those is the way that you need to do it. And if you do the opposite, because sometimes we're like, oh, well, if I wait until I'm super tired, then I'll be able to sleep really well. When in fact, because of your design, that's the opposite of what you should do. And you wait until you're super tired, then you can't sleep. And it becomes this, nasty cycle. So I love to do things in sets of three. So I'm going to tell you about this wasted energy. So the first one we're going to talk about is pushing against things that have already happened. So this is a big one that every single one of us does. We live in this space where we're so fixated on things that have already happened and then trying to, wrap our heads around like the why did it happen, the how did I let this happen? And you're so fixated on wanting to go back and change it that you're spending all of your energy and all your emotion and all of your resources pushing against something that already came about. And we all do it. It's a really difficult thing to work past. And so, you really have to align yourself with the living in the now moment, which means you're not looking ahead in the future and you're not looking backwards. You're focused on in the moment right now. And you guys hear me talk about this a lot because literally speaking, living in the now moment is the only place to be. You can't change anything that's happened, and you're not going to change, or you're not going to make the future, happen right now. All you have the ability to do is affect the moment now. So worrying, hello, Amber, worrying too far ahead or worrying back in the past is a waste of energy. So waste of momentum. So that's why you hear people say, like, you focus on the now. What can I do today in the moment, in the now? And if you're like me, looking ahead a little bit is beneficial so that you can plan a little bit. But I'm saying, like, don't be so focused on 5 years from now, like where you're going to be or what you're going to be doing. Like, have an idea, like, this is my goal, this is where I want to be, but don't overwhelm yourself with how am I going to get to that space. Focus on today. How do I get closer to that space right now? So that's the first one. Pushing against things that have already happened. You got to let them in, own it, let it go, because you can't change it. So focus on things that you have the ability to change, and then just let it go, because fixating on stuff completely takes away your power. It will make you completely powerless if you fixate on things. So shift your focus. What can I do in the now? Use this awareness to define how you want to act differently. So you're choosing differently to act on right now in this moment. Okay. So we're reorienting towards putting our thoughts, words, and actions into what we want to have right now. Not what we did have, not what we could have, not what we should have, but what we want to have. Our actions should be showing that right now in the moment. Okay. The second one, this one's big. Responding to or not responding to other people's emotions. And you're like, well, one of those is just the opposite of the other. And you're right, it is. Because responding to or not responding to others' emotions, like, what else is there? You're either going to respond or you're not going to respond. But those two things cost you both. So here's what you want to do. You want to respond to somebody's emotions, okay, but not take on responsibility for how they feel. So that's saying, I understand how you feel, but not actually taking in the feeling of how they feel. And this is a hard one to master, but if you watch yourself, you'll be able to realize that you're basically having an observation from a distance instead of becoming part of what that person is going through, right? So we all know how that is. You have a really close friend going through something, and it's like you're basically emotionally going through it as well. But if you had somebody that you didn't really know come and tell you something, you're probably not going to get as emotional about it or as, entwined with what they're going through, simply because you have that disconnection. So that's what I'm talking about. You don't want to ever be the type of person, at least I don't want to be the type of person that you're just like, I don't really care what you're going through, right? Because that's just not having any empathy. But I want to have empathy for someone, but not sympathy for them. So don't take on the responsibility for how someone else feels or how their behaviors are or how they react to something. Okay. So here's how this goes down. You have to take 100% ownership for your own emotions. And when we do that, when we take complete ownership for how we feel, we actually empower other people to be able to do the same thing. Now, it's their choice if they choose to take ownership for how they're feeling or not, right? Because people are going to say, well, you did this to me, so you made me feel this way. When in fact, nobody makes anyone feel anything. That is your choice to feel that way. That is your choice to process what they did that way. Now, does it mean that that person, what they did really, if someone steals your ice cream cone, right? And then you're like, you feel upset, it's still your choice to feel upset. I'm choosing to feel upset that someone stole my ice cream cone. That doesn't mean that it's morally all right for the other person to take my ice cream cone, but I still have the choice to feel upset about it. I can choose to not let it upset me by what? Looking at all the other options. Like this is a simplistic example, but being like, oh, I can get another ice cream cone, right? See how that kind of works. So you don't have to take on the responsibility of other people, because your job is to take on the responsibility of how you feel. You don't worry about also the person that took your ice cream cone. It's not your job to demoralize them or criticize them for their behaviors. You let them decide for themselves if they want to choose to engage in what they've done. And this is a really high emotional platform to be on. It's a dimensional space, I like to call it. It takes a lot of time to sort of get into that mindset of being in this shift where you're like, okay, you know, I'm going to let people do their thing and I'm going to do my thing. And I will 100% tell you that I don't think I really got into that like really good space until maybe even 6 months ago. And even now, like I still have to work on it because I tend to really be the type of person that's a reactor. And it's engaging for me. It's almost like I get an adrenaline out of being confrontational. And I was having this conversation even just with my mom a couple of days ago about telling her, like, it's so interesting that the old me would have responded to a situation that I'm going through with lots of rage and lots of outbursts and lots of vocalize, this is how I feel, and telling other people, about themselves. When instead, like, I've chosen this space to just listen and process what people are saying and not respond like that because, um, I've moved past that and I realized that my response mechanism is defensiveness and I'm engaging in that for an adrenaline rush, honestly. And so, recognizing that you do those things so that you can be like, wow, I choose not to respond that way. I choose to not respond that way. Is it difficult? Yes. How do I still kind of get that out if I really need to? I'll write it all down on a piece of paper because it releases it for me. And then I don't feel that like pressure from my energy system to tell people, basically where to stick it still. So, okay. The other thing, I want you to know that this is something really, write it down. It's okay to let people down if it means that you don't abandon yourself. So we're taught in culture and society to put everybody before ourselves and that we put ourselves first, we're being selfish, right? Even in my military background, service before self is was one of the mottos that we aligned with when I was in the military. Service before self, which, I'd say in a military sense is probably applicable. But as far as like, I grew up thinking, ooh, I should serve my neighbor before I serve myself. And that's a hard one to get past because you're like, well, wait, if I put myself first, then I'm being selfish. But is what you really have to understand is when you fill your own cup, when you really truly take the time to not abandon your own needs, it puts you at such a high level, you have plenty to give to other people. Because if you're giving, 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 and you're not aligning with yourself and not providing yourself with what you need, you can't give as much. It's just not possible. It's like saying I'm going to go run 5 miles and I never actually train for it, right? Like I don't have as much to give. But if I train for it, I can run more than 5 miles. It's like this, it's the same type of scenario. Fill your own cup. And this is how I visualize it. I like those like super cool fountains, right? Where, there's like one on the top and then it all comes down in the right, the cup on the top, all the water comes into it first, right? And it fills everybody else's cups. And if we all did that, took care of ourselves first, then we would be like the fountain. We would be able to fill, constantly filling. But we're taught that that's really selfish, and it's not. It's not selfish at all. You can't help other people if you don't help yourself, right? Always comes back to the airline and the oxygen mask, right? Who do you put the oxygen mask on first? You, because you can't help anyone else if you put oxygen masks on other people first. You don't have time. And it's the same type of thing when it is, talking about yourself. So don't. It's okay to put people down if it means you don't abandon your own self. Okay. So locate the guilt that you have because we all do this. We have guilt when we don't take on the burdens of other people. So it's not your responsibility. I want you to find that guilt, feel it. Like right now, when you're done watching, just think about it. Like, where do I feel guilt because I'm not taking on the burden of something that someone else is going through? It doesn't mean you can't have some empathy for them. It doesn't mean you can't be understanding, but you don't need to absorb the actual feelings of what they're going through. You don't need to take it on. You're not responsible for what they're doing, how they're feeling. It's not on you, okay? Now, here's the last one I'm going to tell you. This one is a little bit different of a wasted energy, but it's listening to your ego and listening to your mind center. So when I say egos, I'm not talking about like, we think of ego as like, oh, I think I'm so amazing compared to everyone else. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your ego is in your cognitive mind. So ego, cognitive mind, align with those, that those are the same thing of what I'm talking about. So you have these cool centers. You have your crown center. For those of you that are into chakras, you'll recognize them. You have your crown center, but in human design, we have a mind center and we have our throat. So is what happens is your crown center and your mind center put lots of pressure on your throat center, which is why you feel the urge to speak out if those channels are active and open for you. If they're not, it can cause you lots of turmoil because you just feel pressure to speak and you can't communicate unless you find someone else that can communicate your ideas for you, which is so cool to study this because you basically energetically download how you're feeling into someone else and then they blubber out how you're feeling. It so truly happens. Like watch people. You'll see it. You'll see when you get into a certain situation, especially like if you're around friends all the time. Watch that you'll see if another person is talking for someone else. It's because their throat and their channels are active and the person is basically using the energy of that person to voice their opinions. It's an amazing phenomenon to watch when you really understand how people's energy engages with each other. So here's the thing though. We listen to our minds and that's our cognitive mind speaking. And then we want to do what our mind says, but that's actually not the right way to do anything. So you waste a ton of energy when you start using your mind to make decisions, but that's what you've been taught, right? You go to school for your entire life to learn how to make decisions, but your mind is actually there to analyze things, not to make decisions. And you actually have an authority body within your energy system, whether it's your sacrals or your splenic center. So if it's your sacral chakra, it actually is how you say uh-huh or uh-uh when you're a kiddo, right? Someone asks you, do you want a grilled cheese? And you respond and you say uh-huh or uh-uh. And that's actually because adults in life haven't got to you yet. So your sacral is answering. Or if your authority is your splenic, that's that intuitive ability that you get where you just feel it, like you just know, right? It's your intuition. And you just immediately get a little thought of a yes or a no, or this feels right or it doesn't. The problem is it only speaks to you once for whatever you're looking, whatever decision, whatever you're feeling. It only talks to you one time. And so then guess what? You feel it like you're like, oh, I feel like aligned with this. So let's say you're changing jobs, right? Initially, you get this like, oh, this is a great idea. And then what happens? Your mind comes in and it starts blah, 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 chatting to you. And it gives you all of the reasons why it doesn't make any sense for you to change your job. And it tries to get you to stay safe, right? Because that's what your mind is for. It's to keep you alive. It's so that you don't die when we're in hunter-gatherer stages. And so, yeah, anything that looks to be slightly unsafe, your brain is going to try to talk you out of it. When your intuitive part of you is like, no, it's aligned with you. This is what you should be doing. And then we don't ever do things because we're scared. Okay. So your mind is not there for making decisions. Okay. So let's recap ways that you're wasting energy. Go write these down and then analyze, do some noodling and see like, where am I doing this myself? So one, pushing against things that have already happened, right? Let it go. You can only live in the now. Stop putting fixation, stop wasting energy on what has already gone down. Responding to other people's emotions, taking on that burden, feeling all their feels, allowing it to overwhelm you, putting yourself second, right? You can respond and you can have some empathy, but don't have sympathy for taking on them. So let go of the guilt. It's not your ownership. Take ownership of how you feel. That's where you get it. Take ownership of how you feel and let other people's emotions be their own. That is how you empower them. Okay. And then don't listen to your mind. listen to your authority center. So your your intuitive. The more that you do that, the more it will come to you, and the more that you'll be able to work with your mind as it is for what it is, analyzing something so that you can then be like, oh, I can clearly feel which way I should go with this. All right, guys, if you love this stuff, my links are here in the first part of this. So I have the Soul Centered Academy. You can take courses and learn all about your human design. You can do one-on-one sessions with me. It's just a beautiful place to be. Get your center, get your grounded, feel your amazing self, and honestly, just love who you are and get your smile back. Okay, happy Monday. Have a beautiful